1996, Kamchatka, a small, long-forgotten town. Konstantin Volkov appears in the office of Colonel Bityugov, the head of a high-security prison, a prison where lifers serve their time and those sentenced to death await their fate. Bityugov's conversation with Kostya is interrupted by the arrival of a young prosecutor, Andrei Mikhailov, and two guards, Roman Savelyev and Alexander Rybkin. From this day on, they will be Volkov's colleagues, as he has arrived to take up the position of the executioner. Introducing the new staff member, the colonel gestures for Rybkin to keep an eye on Kostya and then turns his attention back to the prosecutor. It's not the warmest conversation. Bityugov, against the rules, refuses to attend a night execution due to personal plans. His mother-in-law's anniversary is coming up, and missing it would be far worse than violating official protocol. The guards give a brief tour, showing the layout of the prison buildings, the foul-smelling kitchen, and of course leading him to the main block, the place where 5 death row inmates are held. It's here that Konstantin first shows he's not as simple as he may seem. Hearing an old man groaning in pain from one of the cells, he demands order and insists the inmate be taken to the doctor. Volkov doesn't care that the man in question, a retired professor, once brutally murdered 12 of his female students, dismembering their bodies and stuffing them into bags. He insists that medical care must be provided to any human being, regardless of their crimes. The prison doctor, Pyotr Alexeyevich, is equally puzzled when the suffering inmate is brought to him. First of all, it's not customary here to treat people like that. Secondly, the prison doesn't even have the necessary medication to relieve the professor's kidney pain. But Kostya surprises everyone again. He runs to a pharmacy and buys medicine and syringes with his own money to help the condemned man. Meanwhile, prosecutor Andrei arrives home for lunch. But instead of a warm meal, he's met with a family argument. His parents are angry that Katya, Andrei's wife, spent the money meant for the electricity bill. Katya doesn't stay silent either. She stages a whole dramatic scene, offering to divorce him since he can't provide properly for a beauty like her. It ends with a beating behind closed doors, something no one pays attention to, so as not to air dirty laundry in public. Putting the family squabble aside, the prosecutor returns to Bityugov's office, but even there he fails to assert authority. The prison chief once again emphasizes that he has a major event to attend and gives the team 2 choices: either postpone the execution or carry it out without him. Another thorn in Andrei's side is Konstantin. The newcomer moralist demands that the prosecutor follow protocol and read aloud the court ruling, explaining in detail the story of the condemned man. No one likes this, but the team silently tolerates it while the prosecutor complies with Volkov's demand. After the formalities, Rybkin and Savelyev inform the inmate that his appeal has been denied. They suggest writing another one, but everyone understands it's a lie, just a way to lure him out of the cell. The guards escort the prisoner through long, gloomy corridors, and eventually, they all enter a room lined with black plastic sheeting. Andrei reads the court ruling again and announces that the sentence will be carried out immediately. The guards and prosecutor, already used to the procedure, don't rush to end the convict's suffering, but Kostya Volkov does it for them. Without waiting for a command, he pulls the trigger, and the heavy body crashes onto the tiled floor. After the shift, the prison staff head home. Noticing that no one is eager to talk to the newcomer, Sasha Rybkin decides to keep Kostya company. The 2 men walk together to a crossroads, and to fully win over Volkov, Sasha invites him and his wife to his upcoming wedding, just a few days away. But Sasha doesn't only talk about the wedding with his new friend, he also chats with his fiancée, Natasha. Lately, her only thoughts are about slicing enough Olivier salad in time and where to find a piglet, because if there's none of that, people won't understand, and everyone will say the Rybkins skimped on food for both the fancy and not-so-fancy guests. The prison doctor also leaves work, but unlike Rybkin, he's in no rush to get home. He drives to the port, to a spot frequented by the local ladies of the night. At the last moment, something clicks in Pyotr's mind, and he leaves without using their services, but his conscience doesn't last long. After stopping by home for just a few minutes, he finds an excuse to go out for bread and ends up indulging himself with one of the port butterflies. On the penultimate evening of her single life, Natasha decides to spend time with her girlfriends at the local bar, Dolphin. A couple of bottles of cheap champagne, cheerful music, a typical bachelorette party that seems harmless enough, but the group catches the attention of Vadim, a local crime boss, and it's Natasha who draws his eye the most. For a girl not used to much male attention, this is flattering. She flirts with Vadim all evening, mentioning that she's about to get married. Natasha's friends don't stay behind. They smile at Vadim's friends and drop heavy hints about continuing the fun elsewhere. But the flirting is just a silly game. When things go too far, the girls escape through a window, assuming they'll get away with it. And they do, most of them anyway. Only Natasha isn't so lucky. Vadim cuts her off near her house and, threatening her with a gun, forces her into his car. Natasha returns home only in the morning, and one look at her is enough for Sasha to understand what happened. But sadly, the bride receives no sympathy or support. Her fiancé blames her for going to a sleazy place and asking for trouble. During work conversations, Kostya Volkov immediately notices that something is off with Sasha, but Rybkin denies everything, insists he's fine and there's no need to worry. At the end of the shift, Sasha somehow manages to steal a pistol and smuggle it out of the prison grounds. Volkov notices it but says nothing. He says goodbye to his friend at the usual crossroads and heads home, unaware that a mysterious man is watching both him and Rybkin. Back at home, Sasha first tries to take his own life, but doesn't have the courage to go through with it. Instead, he demands that his fiancée tell him the name of the man who did that to her so he can settle the score like a man. Finding Vadim isn't easy. He's a regular at Dolphin. But when the time comes, Sasha once again can't pull the trigger. It seems easier to believe the gangster's claim that Natasha wanted it, and he was just fulfilling her request. A scuffle breaks out between the men, and Rybkin is clearly losing. He's on the edge, until Kostya suddenly shows up and fires a sawed-off shotgun into the gangster. Looking around to make sure no one's watching, Kostya orders Rybkin to help drag the body into Vadim's car. Together, the men drive the foreign-made vehicle to a deserted hill and burn it, convinced that this way they'll leave no trace behind. What they don't know is that the mysterious stranger has been watching them the entire time, aware of every move they make. It's time for a heart-to-heart, and Rybkin finally tells his friend what happened to his fiancée. The noble Konstantin listens carefully and offers wise advice, not to blame Natasha and to live on as if nothing happened. Natasha is also trying to move on, slicing salads and preparing for the wedding. Canceling is not an option. People wouldn't understand. She tries to open up to her mother, but even she offers no sympathy. The woman believes her daughter is to blame and now simply has to endure. All day, Sasha and Kostya talk only about what happened. Rybkin isn't sure he still wants to marry the girl after all this. He's worried about tarnishing his reputation. He even plans to tell Natasha, but that evening, another tragedy strikes. Unable to bear the coldness anymore, Natasha tries to leave her own life. The attempt fails, but out of pity, Rybkin can't bring himself to bring it up. And the next day, all of the couple's friends and relatives gather at the local community center to celebrate the young couple's wedding. Kostya Volkov arrives at the wedding with his wife, Nina. From the very first moment, she catches the eye of Roma Savelyev. But there's another guest at the wedding, the mysterious stranger who's been following the guards. Waiting until Rybkin and Volkov step outside for a smoke, he approaches them and says he knows what they did, and he has an offer, one that will determine the future of both men. The stranger, Kotov, turns out to be the father of one of the professor's victims. He wants to be allowed to punish the criminal with his own hands. He's willing to pay for the opportunity. If they refuse, he'll go to the police and report what happened to Vadim and who was responsible. Already shaken by Kotov's appearance, Sasha becomes even more nervous the next morning when police officers come to his home. They question Natasha, the last person seen with Vadim before his disappearance. Sasha tells Konstantin about the visit, but Volkov assures him there's no need to worry. Things aren't going smoothly at the prosecutor's house either. While he's out working and trying to make a living, his wife and mother are at each other's throats, fighting over territory. It ends in a scuffle and a bucket of dirty water dumped on Katya's head. When Andrei hears about it, he rushes home, only to find his wife gone. She's packed her things and left, leaving behind only a nasty message scrawled on the expensive wall unit. Unlike the prosecutor, the prison doctor enjoys peace and quiet at home. As a dutiful family man, he picks up his son from a kid's birthday party, as his wife asked him to. The birthday boy's mother asks Pyotr to wait while the kids finish watching cartoons. He gladly agrees to have a cup of tea, and within 15 minutes, the two of them are locked in the bathroom, adding a little spice to the celebration. While everyone is dealing with family issues, Kostya Volkov tackles the main one. Breaking protocol, he invites the professor to a candid conversation, hiding a tape recorder under the table. Volkov asks the convict to describe in detail how and why he committed his horrific crimes. Andrei's search for his wife leads him to a nightclub, but no one there cares about his job title. Katya's new friends harshly explain the rules, and he's forced to leave. Still, Katya takes pity on her husband and catches up with him outside, trying to make amends in the back seat of a beat-up car. But she makes it clear right away, this isn't a reconciliation. If Andrei doesn't find a way to earn more and give her the glamorous life she wants, she won't stay with him. Without explaining anything to Sasha, Volkov asks him to approach Andrei and request the professor's case files. To Sasha's surprise, the prosecutor agrees for a certain price. Kostya takes the money from Kotov, promising that they'll fulfill his request. They'll secretly bring him into the prison and let him punish the criminal himself. That same day, Andrei rents a luxurious apartment in an elite neighborhood for his wife and receives a very enthusiastic thank you in return. All night, Kostya Volkov pores over the case files. He makes a list of all the victims and identifies those whose families are wealthy and successful. Wasting no time, the next morning, Kostya flies to the mainland to put his plan into action. While he's away, Roma Savelyev decides to be bold. He constantly seeks out Nina and pretends to be deeply interested in her love of books. Volkov manages to meet with Alla Linchuk, a successful businesswoman and the mother of one of the professor's victims. He openly tells her about himself and makes her an offer. He'll let her take revenge for her daughter in exchange for a substantial sum of money. As a powerful argument, Volkov leaves her with a cassette, a recording of the professor's confession. Pyotr continues visiting his new lover, but today she's not in the mood for pleasure. The woman complains of a severe toothache, and the doctor offers to refer her to his wife. Yulia is the only good dentist in town. Wasting no time, the woman visits the clinic, and Yulia immediately senses something is wrong. After examining the patient, she carefully washes her hands and sends the woman to the lab for an HIV test. When the result comes back positive, the woman informs Pyotr right away. The man realizes that he most likely brought the infection home from the port prostitutes, and now he has no choice but to confess everything to his wife. Returning to the city, Kostya meets with Kotov, but instead of giving the man his money back or keeping his promise, he gets rid of the bothersome guy once and for all. Rybkin is shaking with fear and even considers turning himself into the police, but Kostya convinces him otherwise. Soon they'll earn a fortune and be able to live a completely different life. The doctor and his wife get tested, and it turns out only Pyotr got lucky. He's among the very rare carriers who don't actually develop the disease. But Yulia wasn't so lucky. Her result comes back positive. The woman suffers a nervous breakdown, but her husband promises to fix everything. He'll find the money and send her to Moscow, where she can get proper treatment. A few days later, each of the main characters gets a chance to solve their financial problems. Kostya Volkov gathers everyone in the storage room and offers them a side hustle, outsourcing their duties. According to the moralist, everyone benefits. They'll get big money, and those who suffered at the hands of criminals will finally get justice. Everyone present understands this is a crime, one that could earn them a long prison sentence. But the crisp green bills Linchuk gave Kostya as an advance cloud their judgment, and all of them, even the prosecutor, agree to the scheme. That night, the professor is taken from his cell, and while he walks the gloomy corridors, Volkov secretly brings Alla Linchuk into the prison. For the first time, the woman comes face to face with the man who took her daughter's life, and she demands to do things her own way, not just pull the trigger. After what Linchuk does, Savelyev and Rybkin have to spend several hours cleaning the room, but the money they got makes up for the small inconvenience. Only the characters' problems aren't over. Pyotr's wife refuses to take money from him for treatment, and Natasha finds out she's pregnant. The young couple faces a new ordeal. Only Kostya Volkov has no problems. On the contrary, he's getting into the swing of it and asks Andrei to give him the case files of another inmate, the doctor, who sent over 30 patients to their deaths. Following a local tip, a police unit arrives at an abandoned construction site where Kotov's body was left. Investigator Zhuchkov examines the corpse, takes the cash, and finds a piece of paper with a hand-drawn map on it. Meanwhile, Volkov invites the doctor for a talk, intending to record a confession before looking for anyone interested in punishing the man. Returning home, Andrei finds their place a mess. His drunken wife confesses she found his stash of money. The prosecutor starts to fear that sooner or later, Katya will blab to everyone. Pyotr's wife quits her job, making up an excuse, but her colleagues won't let her leave without a send-off. The women gather in the reception area with a bottle of wine, but Yulia can't take it. She locks herself in the bathroom and downs several packs of pills, wanting to end it all once and for all. Kostya continues to work with case materials, but doesn't forget about his family. Noticing Nina's boots are worn and falling apart, he gives her money to buy new ones. When Natasha tells her husband about the pregnancy, she's once again met with rejection. Since it's impossible to know who the father is, Rybkin doesn't want her to keep the baby. Roma seizes another moment when Volkov is out of town and starts following Nina. Masha, the Volkov's young daughter, notices this, but her attention quickly shifts to another of her mother's sins. Instead of boots, Nina bought books, and she begs Masha not to tell her father. But the girl doesn't keep the secret. That same evening, she tells Kostya about the books, and in response, he throws Nina's only pair of boots into the trash, forcing her to walk through winter in summer sandals. Kostya and Sasha travel to Khabarovsk to meet with the families of those who died at the doctor's hands. But this time, nothing goes according to plan. Not only do the families have no grievances, many of them had actually paid the doctor to end the suffering of their terminally ill loved ones. The last attempt, Andrei Popov, a man who once asked the doctor to end the suffering of his little son, born with a severe illness. To pressure him, Kostya tells the man that the illness is now treatable and that the boy could have been saved, if only the doctor hadn't injected him with a lethal cocktail. Their conversation is overheard by Popov's friend Oleg, who becomes the sole witness to Popov's death. The man takes his own life, blaming himself for his son's death. Memorizing the hotel address, Oleg shows up to meet with Volkov and declares that he wants to avenge his old friend. But Kostya quickly realizes there's something else going on. Oleg took the money and now just wants to get a thrill, hiding behind noble intentions. This doesn't sit well with Volkov, and he tries to get rid of the visitor, but Rybkin stops his partner, who's starting to go too far, killing people simply because they don't fit his standards. A dispute breaks out between the two men. Rybkin believes they shouldn't worry about the motives of the clients. If someone pays, they can sneak anyone they want into the prison. But Volkov disagrees. He insists that they're really not just making money. They should also be fighting for justice. In the end, they decide to take Oleg back to the city, and once there, figure out together what to do next. Now fully emboldened, Savelyev shows up at the Volkovs' home and confesses his love to Nina. He proposes they run away abroad together and start over, but the woman only laughs at him and demands he never come back again. In addition to the apartment, the prosecutor buys an expensive foreign car, but even that doesn't make his wife any happier. She keeps drinking whenever she's home alone. The trail leads investigator Zhuchkov to the prison, but Colonel Bityugov refuses to cooperate. He doesn't like outsiders meddling in prison affairs. The prosecutor, however, is happy to see Zhuchkov. He recognizes him as a former classmate, and the two men agree to meet up sometime for a drink. But the friends' reunion has to be postponed. The prosecutor and the prison warden inform the doctor that his appeal has been denied and his sentence will soon be carried out. Zhuchkov, however, doesn't stop working. He heads to the location marked on Kotov's hand-drawn map, and there he finds Vadim's burned-out car. A forensics team arrives immediately, and the body shows the same bullet wound as Kotov's. Rybkin and Volkov bring Oleg to Pyotr's apartment. The prison doctor examines his injuries, sets the bone, and gives him a sedative injection to buy them some time. Kostya tells the group what happened in Khabarovsk, but like Rybkin, the others aren't swayed by Volkov's noble impulses. They all believe they should take the money and do what Oleg is asking. Zhuchkov interviews Natasha's friends and learns that Kotov was at the Rybkin's wedding. He decides to speak to the girl again, but Natasha is unable to give testimony. She suffers complications from a terminated pregnancy, and Zhuchkov has to call an ambulance to save her. Overhearing the prosecutor, Kostya manages to catch what his colleagues are saying behind his back and learns something quite revealing. Andrei plans to carry out the next execution without Volkov, hoping to teach the stubborn moralist a lesson and prove that money is what really matters. Sasha learns that Natasha will never be able to have children again. Racked with guilt, he buys 2 cups of cheap vodka to numb the pain. Drunk and broken, Rybkin shows up to work, and Kostya seizes the opportunity. He locks his friend in an empty cell and writes a report to the warden. Finding a forgotten gym bag, Nina runs after her daughter to deliver it. But of course, everyone notices that the woman is walking through snow in summer sandals. Burning with shame, little Masha lashes out at her mother with hurtful words, and the only person Nina can think of at that moment is Roman. Elated to receive attention from a woman, Roma becomes so bold that he even locks his mother in a room. He brings his guest to his bedroom, listens to her story about the discarded boots, and finds a way to comfort her, forgetting entirely how loudly his bed squeaks. Before she leaves, Roma gives Nina his mother's boots, so she won't have to freeze in sandals anymore. Once Rybkin sobers up, Bityugov calls him in and suspends him from duty. Thus, Volkov's plan begins to unfold. One of his rivals is now out of the way. Nina returns home, and from her husband's eyes, she realizes that Masha has told him about her leaving the house. For breaking the rules of their household, Kostya punishes her. He locks the door and cuts off Nina's hair. Zhuchkov arrives at the hospital, but he isn't allowed in Natasha's room. Still, he manages to speak with her mother, who shares a lot, including what happened to her daughter and how Vadim was involved. The prosecutor throws a housewarming party, inviting all his colleagues. Sasha is the first to arrive, already tipsy, followed by Kostya and Nina. And as soon as Roman walks in, Volkov decides to make a statement. He rips off Nina's hat and makes tasteless jokes to show everyone what he's done to his wife. Nina tries to cover up the situation, mumbling something about a bad hair treatment at the salon, but it's obvious to everyone what really happened. Roman loses control and attacks Volkov, forcing Andrei to kick him out. Zhuchkov also shows up to the party at the Mikhailovs. Just then, a tipsy Katya starts making candid comments, boasting that they finally escaped poverty and now live like normal people. Trying to shut her up, Andrei locks her in the bathroom and delivers a few family punches. But just as he's doing so, Kostya appears at the door. A self-proclaimed noble defender, ready to teach the prosecutor a lesson. You don't hurt women. The rest of the evening passes in silence, and Zhuchkov decides it's time to leave. But he takes Sasha Rybkin with him, promising to get him home and put him to bed. Pyotr also returns home, only to find his guest unconscious. Luckily, Yulia comes back just in time and helps her husband revive the patient. After a quick look around Rybkin's apartment, Zhuchkov steps outside and finds Konstantin waiting for him. Putting on his most innocent face, Kostya tells the investigator he knows who got rid of Kotov. He claims that the prison warden, Bityugov, is outsourcing executions, and Kotov was one of the candidates. As proof, he invites Zhuchkov to visit the prison that very night because supposedly the doctor's sentence will be carried out and an outsider will be involved. Zhuchkov agrees to verify the story, but to make sure Kostya doesn't warn anyone, he locks him in a holding cell. Volkov is perfectly fine with that. It helps take suspicion off him. The guards bring Oleg to the prison, hand him a gun, and tell him to do what he paid for, but the guy starts backing out. After all he's been through, he no longer wants to go through with it. The procedure is interrupted by a knock at the door. With no other choice, the guards knock Oleg out and hide him in a storage room. But when the warden and the investigator enter the room, the prisoner manages to signal Zhuchkov and point to where Oleg was hidden. Unfortunately, Oleg's already weakened body doesn't survive the second blow. Zhuchkov records his death and expects the prison warden to take proper action. Bityugov does act, but not in the way the investigator expected. He orders the doctor back to his cell and has Zhuchkov locked up instead. Then he calls everyone to meet in the storage room to sort things out and decide what to do next. A heated argument breaks out among the colleagues, but everyone goes quiet when Bityugov walks in. Left with no choice, the group tells the warden the truth about the outsourcing scheme and pins the entire blame on Volkov, who is conveniently nowhere to be found. Bityugov explodes with rage. He locks the conspirators up, takes Andrei's car, along with the money they got from Oleg, and drives it off prison grounds. He doesn't return to work until morning, and his first move is to try negotiating with Zhuchkov, hoping to find out where Volkov has gone. But Volkov has just been released from the holding cell, where he spent the night refining his plan. First, he heads home and tells his daughter to skip school and keep an eye on her mother all day, not letting her go anywhere. Only after that does Kostya go to work, where once again he manages to dodge punishment. He convinces Bityugov not to report what's been happening in the prison and to help sweep everything under the rug. Bityugov agrees, but to cover himself, asks Volkov to take a leave of absence. Kostya agrees, but before he leaves, he decides to visit the doctor and give him a quick update. After weighing his options, Bityugov releases the investigator, promises to hand over all those involved, and offers to cooperate with the investigation. But it's a trap. As soon as Zhuchkov lets his guard down, the warden personally puts a bullet in the back of his head. The investigator's body is disposed of under the doctor's prison number, and once the cleanup is done, the team gathers in Bityugov's office. Everyone expects the warden to tear their heads off, but instead he calmly asks for a full briefing, and then declares that from now on, he will be in charge of the outsourcing operation. Bityugov begins his leadership by reaching out to his friend, the warden of a neighboring prison, asking him to lend some death row inmates. Of course, it has to be unofficial, so on paper the prisoners will still be listed at their original facility. Sasha invites Volkov over. He proposes they stay friends, but also urges Kostya to leave the city, warning him that Bityugov is now pulling everyone under his control. But Kostya has entirely different plans. He starts his rounds by visiting Savaliev's mother, telling her that Roman has money hidden somewhere. And more than that, he's involved with a lady of the night who's trying to steal that money from him. His second target is Katya. Volkov tells her the truth about where Andrei's money came from, and more importantly, convinces her that her husband is simply trying to buy her back, covering bruises with banknotes. After visiting Katya, Kostya hurries to the hospital to meet Natasha. The girl, who has forever lost the ability to have children, is now at her most vulnerable, and she believes that her husband didn't come to meet her because he didn't care. And how could she not believe it when she finds out that Sasha told Kostya everything that happened to her lately? After speaking with Volkov, Katya decides to get to know Natasha better, and together the two women begin planning what to do next. As women who were never part of this to begin with, they decide to start by looking for Sasha's hidden money, and then together they go to Yulia to tell her what their husbands have really been up to. While the women prepare their plan, Bityugov is busy reforming his team. He convinces his subordinates that without outsourcing, their lives will return to poverty, but he can turn this business into a well-oiled, regular operation. He tells this to everyone, except Savaliev, because at that very moment, Roma is meeting with Masha and asks the girl to deliver a message to her mother. He'll be waiting for her at a specific time at the air terminal. From there, they can fly away together. Natasha's mother finds out everything Rybkin has done. Several times she tries to report it to the police, but since Zhuchkov's disappearance, no one there is eager to talk to her. She then turns to the prison warden, but it's clear he won't take any action either. Instead, he invites the woman to a restaurant, hoping to entertain her and lull her suspicions. Naturally, the dinner moves from the restaurant to her home, and when Natasha returns, broken and devastated, her caring mother isn't exactly thrilled. Still, she lets her daughter stay the night and makes sure Bityugov overhears everything Natasha confesses. As he prepares to escape with Nina, Roma discovers that his money is gone. No threats, no begging, nothing works. His mother refuses to hand over the large sum, certain he'll blow it all on women. Unaware of this, Nina still decides to run, and her daughter even helps. As soon as Kostya leaves, the girl helps her mother carry the heavy suitcase, hugs her tightly, and says goodbye forever. Nina waits at the station for over an hour, but Roman never shows up. Humiliated and deceived, she realizes she's alone again. 9 new inmates arrive at the prison, and Bityugov watches their check-in with a dreamy glint in his eye. Now they'll definitely get rich, enough to last a lifetime. The warden carefully reviews each case file, searching for the most promising outsourcing candidates. Back home, Nina doesn't even bother to hide her suitcase or erase signs of her failed escape. Instead, she kneels down beside the toilet and scrubs it, as if accepting her fate. At the end of the workday, the warden gathers his staff and announces that from now on, they're kicking operations into full gear. But to make things run smoothly, there's one thing they must do. They need to get rid of Volkov. They decide to eliminate him using the doctor, specifically the cocktail he once used on his patients. In exchange, Pyotr promises to move the old man to the prison infirmary where he'll get a short reprieve from execution. While they prepare the lethal injection, Kostya deals with his own family issues. He lets go of Nina, more precisely, throws her out of the house with her things, reminding her that she once agreed to his rules but never followed them. Natasha once again turns to her mother for help, only to meet not just coldness, but outright envy. Her mother doesn't even try to hide that she hates her daughter now, because she has money. Heartbroken, Natasha drowns her sorrow in an entire box of Raffaello, something she never could afford before. She decides to continue the feast at the Dolphin, where she lives it up. A glass of imported filtered beer and some pistachios. But the celebration doesn't go as planned. A woman sits next to Natasha, Vadim's widow. Natasha tells her everything the gangster did to her that night. In response, instead of an apology, the widow smashes a heavy beer glass into Natasha's face. That evening, Natasha's not the only one partying. Her mother is also having fun in the company of Bityugov. While seated at a restaurant table, the prison warden spots an interesting group. A delegation of Japanese visitors come to experience local culture. An idea strikes the colonel instantly. He contacts the group's translator and offers them a one-of-a-kind experience they won't find anywhere else. Meanwhile, Pyotr informs the team that the cocktail is ready. All that's left is to decide who'll give Volkov the injection. The choice falls on Sasha. He's the only one Kostya was close with, the only one who can approach him without suspicion. Sasha invites Volkov for a meeting and even manages to get him talking. But when it comes to giving the injection, Sasha's courage fails him. Again, the failure sparks another fight, and Rybkin runs off, feeling like a complete loser. Taking advantage of her son's absence, Savaliev's mother retrieves his hidden money stash, planning to borrow some for herself. But she's interrupted by a knock at the door, and when she opens it to see Nina with a suitcase, everything becomes clear. The schemer has come to rob and deceive her son. The old woman tries to kick Nina out, but the girl doesn't back down. Seeing an envelope of cash drop from the woman's hand, Nina fights back and walks away with a bundle of green bills. The first thing Nina buys is the most expensive pair of boots she can find in the local department store. Returning home, Roma learns what happened and instantly knows where to find Nina. He rushes to the air terminal, but he's too late. Nina has already passed through passport control and is flying away to the mainland. Realizing she needs treatment, Yulia makes an appointment with a Moscow doctor who offers an innovative trial therapy, one with excellent results. It's very expensive, but Pyotr promises to find the money and send her. The team rejoices. Their biggest problem is gone. Now they can finally focus on building their prison empire. To do this, Bityugov meets with the translator and sets a time for the execution. More than that, he promises the Japanese not only front row seats, but full participation. One small issue arises. There's only a warrant for the doctor, and he's currently in the infirmary. So the warden decides to break yet another rule. He chooses a different prisoner and plans to backdate the paperwork later. Everyone knows this is a major breach, but no one wants to lose the money. The prosecutor agrees to take the risk, and that evening, they bring out the embezzler, a man convicted for taking bribes. The Japanese pay well for the spectacle, but they also want to get their money's worth. At first, they demand everything be done slowly. Then they join in themselves, taking great pleasure in the process. Finally, the foreign guests ask for the man's heart as a trophy. The lives of everyone in the prison gang really do improve. They now have money. Peace and calm settle over their homes. Katya stops drinking and becomes a respectable housewife. Yulia prepares for treatment in Moscow, and even Natasha no longer thinks about what was done to her. But one day at work, the group receives horrifying news. The president has signed a pardon for all inmates previously sentenced to death. All of them, including the embezzler, who is now beyond saving. The conspirators gather in Bityugov's office in a panic, trying to figure out what to do and also preparing to inform the most dangerous inmate that he's been pardoned. The door bursts open, and in comes the dangerous inmate, armed with an automatic rifle. He fires a long burst, killing everyone who was about to decide his fate and send him to the room wrapped in black plastic. How did the prisoner get a weapon and escape custody? Easily. He was helped by Kostya Volkov, who, as if nothing had happened, stepped right over his former colleagues and calmly called in a cleanup team to restore order.